This is Into the Unknown, Chapter 1, and we are on Section 6 on page 32. 2 months after Nansen had returned home from his Greenland expedition, he became engaged to Eva Sars, daughter of the late Professor Sars, and was married to her the same autumn. The following story of his engagement is related. On the night of August 12th, a shower of gravel and small pebbles rattled against the panes of a window in the house where Fridtjof Nansen's half-sister lived. He was very fond of her, and of her husband also, who had indeed initiated him with the use of gun and rod, and who had taken him with him when a mere lad, many sporting excursion to Nordmarken. On hearing this unusual noise at the dead of night, his brother-in-law jumped out of bed in no very affable frame of mind, and opening the window called, "What is that?" "I want to come in," said a tall figure dressed in gray from the street below. A volley of expletives greeted the nocturnal visitor, who kept saying, "I want to come in." Before long, Fridtjof Nansen was standing in his sister's bedroom at 2 o'clock in the morning. Raising herself up in the bed, she said, "But Fridtjof, whatever is it?" "I'm engaged to be married, that's all," was the laconic reply. "Engaged? But with whom?" "Why, with Eva, of course." Then he said he felt very hungry, and his brother-in-law had to take a journey into the larder and fetch out some cold meat, and then go down into the cellar after a bottle of champagne. His sister's bed served for a table, and a new chapter in Fridtjof's saga was inaugurated at this nocturnal banquet. The story goes, Nansen first met his future wife in a snowdrift. One day, it appears, when up in the Frogner woods, he spied 2 little boots sticking out of the snow. Curiosity prompted him to go and see whom the said boots belonged, and as he approached for that purpose, a little snow-besprinkled head peered up at him. It was Eva Sars. What gives this anecdote interest is that it was out of the snow and of the cold to which he was to dedicate his life, she who became dearer to him than life itself, first appeared. Another circumstance connected therewith worthy of note is that Eva Sars was a person of rather a cold and repellent nature, and gave one the impression that there was a good deal of snow in her disposition. Hence the reason, perhaps, why she kept aloof rather than attracted to those who would know her. Fridtjof Nansen, however, was not the man to be deterred by coldness. He was determined to win her, even if he should have to cross the inland ice of Greenland for that purpose. But when she became his wife, all the reserve and coldness of her nature disappeared. She took the warmest interest in his plans, participated in his work, making every sacrifice a woman can to promote his purpose. In all his excursions in the open air, she accompanied him, and when she knew that he was making preparations for another expedition, one involving life itself, not a murmur escaped her lips. And when the hour of parting came at last, and a long, lonely time of waiting lay before her, she broke out into song. For in those dreary years of hope deferred, she developed into an accomplished songstress. The maidens of Norway, listening to her spirited strains and beholding this brave little woman with her proudly uplifted head, learned from Eva Nansen that such was the way in which a woman could meet a sorrow, such the way in which she could undergo a time of trial. The day after the wedding, the newly married pair set out for Newcastle, where there was to be a meeting of the Geographical Society, traveling via Gothenburg, Hamburg, and London. After this, they went to Stockholm, and here Nansen was presented with the Vega Medal by His Majesty. This was a distinguished honor. This was a distinguished honor, the more so as it had hitherto only been awarded to 5 persons, among whom were Stanley and Nordenskjold. Nansen subsequently was presented with several medals in foreign countries, and was made a Knight of the Order of St. Olaf and Dannebrog. On their return from Stockholm to Norway, Nansen and his wife took apartments at Marte Larsen's, the old housekeeper at Store Frohen, and stayed there 2 months, after which they took a house on the Drammen road. But they did not enjoy themselves there, and Nansen determined to build a house, for which purpose he bought a site at Svartbukta, near Lysaker. It was here that as a boy he had often watched for wild ducks. It was a charming spot, moreover, and within easy distance of the town. The house was finished in the spring of 1890. During the whole of the winter, while building operations were going on, they lived in an icy cold pavilion near Leicester railway station. It was here he weaned me from freezing, says Ava Nansen. In this wretched habitation, where the water froze in the bedroom at night, Nansen would sit and work on his book in Greenland, and when he had time, he would superintend the building of the new house. It was called Godthab. In the autumn of this year, Nansen set out on a lengthened lecturing tour, accompanied by his wife. He lectured in Copenhagen, London, Berlin, Dresden about his Greenland experiences, and also about the projected expedition to the North Pole. Everywhere, people were attracted by his captivating individuality, but most thought his new expedition too venturesome. Even the most experienced Arctic explorers shook their heads, for they thought that, from such a daring enterprise, not a single member of the expedition would ever return alive. But Nansen adhered to his own opinions, and we see him in the intervening years occupied with the equipment required for an expedition to the polar regions, a work so stupendous that the preparations for the Greenland expedition were but child's play in comparison. That's the end of section 6 on page 35.